The Intrepid Kangaroos. In an ancient city far, far away, a group of seasoned warriors was renowned for their bravery. They were known as the Intrepid Kangaroos. Their leader, Basil, had the wholehearted support of the populace. His achievements earned him the appellation, the Audacious Kangaroo. The city had an irreconcilable conflict with another city. Although they had a provisional agreement, Basil knew everything was cyclical. Eventually, there would be war. Basil never wavered in his determination to eradicate his enemies. He trained his kangaroos hard and relentlessly pushed them to their limits. They ran mile after mile. They did hand-to-hand combat. They honed their sword skills. Even when his adolescent son, Alexandros, joined his team, he never showed any favoritism. Underneath the Intrepid Kangaroos' stoicism was their pride for having Basil as their commander. One cold winter night, as the land hibernated under a blanket of snow, Basil gathered his men on the training ground for yet another drill. The kangaroos felt drained and enervated from a day of training. Alexandros asked his father whether he would dismiss them as it was cold and dark and they were fatigued. Basil roared at the petulant, officious young kangaroo. How dare he challenge the commander in front of all the kangaroos? Alexandros snapped, "We would all die from the cold before we even went to war." The stakes were high as the two sides prepared for the confrontation. The young challenger charged forth out of bravado. But Basil could deduce his every move. His fists landed on his son again and again. Soon, the young kangaroo was gasping for breath and swallowing his own blood. The Intrepid Kangaroos were dead silent. They were chary of revealing any sympathy for the brazen youth. In his pain and anguish, he reminisced about the time when he was a joey. His father used to recite canto after canto of epic poetry as a lullaby to put him to sleep. The young kangaroo could not see anything through the tears in his eyes. His strength waned. He was at death's door. At this moment, Nikos, an old and wise kangaroo who had survived many wars and many winters, arrived at the scene. He had caught a whiff of blood in the air coming from the arena and had come to investigate. Although he looked emaciated now, he was once a hale and hearty warrior. He begged Basil to cease the assault. He was careful to observe the proprieties. He began, "O mighty warrior, Basil. Allow me to offer you some advice." Basil had much respect for the old warrior. He stopped pummeling the boy, stood up tall, and listened intently. The boy is not yet fully acquainted with the warrior's way. He is highly culpable for what happened today, but he has learned a lesson. If you beat him to death, we would have one fewer warrior. Please forgive the impertinent boy. Basil heeded Nikos' advice. The other kangaroos rushed towards Alexandros to tend to his wounds. There were patches of blood coagulating on his fur. And so, the legend of Basil and the Intrepid Kangaroos grew. When the rival city heard how Basil almost beat his son to death, just the thought of encountering the ruthless kangaroos on the battlefield gave them palpitations. Tales of the Intrepid Kangaroos' infamy spread across the world. They would forever be remembered as some of the greatest warriors in history.